Best of r/Tales from Tech Support episode 17. A recent conversation I had with my boss. Note, my boss has only been with the company for about 8 months at this point. Boss, so we're changing over to new encryption software for our PCS. 1. How many PCS have old encryption? 2. How hard would it be to get those decrypted and old encryption removed so we could install new encryption? Me. We've got about 900,1000 devices with old encryption, and it would take a lot of work to get it removed. Each machine would have to be touched individually. Boss, what? No way. We can't decrypt them from the console. Me. Nope. It's a security thing. They tout it as a feature in their documentation. So a disgruntled or rogue sysadmin can't decrypt all of the PCS at a company, is what they say. Boss, seriously? So what's the process? Me. In the encryption console you have to add a user account as admin of the device, then wait for or force the PC to sync with the console, and then hope that it actually syncs the changes so when you log into the encryption software on the PC it recognizes that account as admin. Once you're in as admin you can start the decryption process. Depending on the drive type, size, and age of the machine, that could take 30 minutes, or it could take 10 hours. Once that's done, you can then remove the pre-boot module from the software. Then you can finally uninstall the software from the machine. Boss, don't we have like 1800 PCS? Are the rest unencrypted? Me. Well, you only asked about old encryption, and technically we have 2 separate instances of old encryption software. Office 2 has their own console that I don't have access to with probably another 100 machines or so. But I assume you also want to know that Office 3, Office 4, Office 5, and Office 6 have older machines with older encryption, and that Office 7 also has machines with older encryption, but attached to their own console separate from the one those other offices use. We also have a handful of installs of even older encryption still floating around here at Office 1 too. Even older encryption we cannot remove. It has to communicate with a server/console that hasn't existed in the last 4 years. Older encryption we can technically remove remotely. We would have to create a GPO that tells the PCS with that encryption to decrypt. Otherwise it's almost the same manually as old encryption. Also, we probably still have a couple installs of ancient encryption too, which would be the same as even older encryption. No console exists anymore so can't uninstall. Oh, and I haven't mentioned Office 8 yet. They have their own installs of both older encryption and even older encryption. I think they might still have a console for even older encryption, so we might be able to decrypt those instead of replacing them. Most of their machines use BitLocker though. I think only 2 people have access to the access database. They keep those recovery keys in as well. Boss, I really shouldn't ask, but how do we have this many different encryption programs? Me. I think you know by now company did the bare minimum to integrate purchased companies. For a while it was basically make sure networks could see each other, and that was it. Legacy company, which is all of here, Office 1, stopped using ancient encryption 7 years ago. Then we moved to even older encryption which we stopped using around 4 years ago, when I started. Since then we've been using old encryption. The company that was Offices 3 through 6 brought older encryption with them when we merged right when I started. We switched them to old encryption about 3 years ago. Office 7 brought their own, which we switched almost immediately when we bought them 3 years ago as well. Office 2 brought their own when they were purchased them 2 years ago, which they continue to use. Same with Office 8. They came with their 3 encryption versions when purchased about a year ago. They also use old encryption now as well. Boss, I don't think we will making it a project to get old PCS updated with new encryption. Think we'll just start with all new machines and replacements for old PCS. Me. Sounds good for me. Have we actually gotten a working install for new encryption? Boss, what do you mean? Me. New encryption won't install unless we tell it to not do its compatibility checks. So far every time we've skipped the compatibility check it has installed and then worked, but we can't really be sure it works on all PC types before we actually encrypt one. Good chance we end up bricking some PCS. Vendor so far has no answers as to why new encryption thinks our PCS aren't compatible. Boss, I will keep that in mind. Thank you. Next. Years ago, I was a network/sysadmin in the army. I controlled, managed and administrated a Class B subnet in a LAN/1 configuration. My connection went to the next higher level in the scheme of things. My core router connected to another router that was owned and managed by the next higher level. Both were in the room. Their gateway router was a Cisco 7200 VXR. Cisco should have been crucified for making such a shitty router. The next level NOC would work the ACL tables and other updates on their 7200 at night and on weekends. Monday from hell 530 hours. I get in, check for outside connectivity. None. Do a trace route out to Google. I have connectivity all the way up to my core router, then 0. I pick up the phone and call the NOC. Me, this is SGT redacted with redacted. I'm having a network issue with outside connectivity. NOC, you guys. Yep, we were working on the config of the 7200 remotely this weekend and we jacked the config up and got locked out. We're working on getting it fixed. Me, okay. Got an ETA on that fix? NOC, not yet. We're still working it. He sent out a global email to my users letting them know there is no outside connectivity and have no ETA on when it'll be fixed. 545 hours. 830 hours. I call the NOC again to get an ETA. I've been slammed with angry calls from colonels wanting to know. Me, this is SGT redacted with redacted. What's the ETA on outside connectivity? NOC air. We're still working on it. No ETA at this time. Okay. What seems to be the problem? NOC, the router is giving us about 2 minutes of time to work the config, then it's kicking us out. We have to wait for a telnet session to expire so we can get back into it. They maxed out the telnet sessions and had to wait for one to expire. Isu. How long have you guys been doing this? NOC, all weekend. We've been working on it 24/7 since Saturday morning. Me, are you even close? NOC, nope. 1030 hours. Head off to the basement switch room and call the NOC from there. Me, this is SGT redacted with redacted. I'm calling about the network issue in redacted. Do you have an ETA? NOC, we're still working it. Me, did you save the config yet? NOC, no. Me, since you've not saved the new config over the top of the old, we can power cycle this. NOC, no. We've put too much time into this. Me, okay. I'll wait. Hold on. Yell across the room, Joe. Get out from behind those racks. You might trip on a power cable. Power cycle 7200 via power cord. Joe just tripped on a power cable and your 7200 was unplugged. Sorry guys. Looks like the router is coming back online. We have outside connectivity again. Thanks for the great work you guys did. Hang up phone. 5 minutes later switch room phone rings. It's the NOC with a chief warrant talking. CW, we think you unplugged our router. SGT. Me, really, chief? Can you prove it? I mean, you're 4,000 miles away. I don't think you're going to hop into a car and drive over here. You have no security cameras in my switch room. So, it's my word against yours. I'm willing to stack a gaggle of full bird kernels, a 1-star and a 2-star against whatever you can throw at me. Your techs have FK'd around with this for more than 48 hours with 0 success. Tell your techs to get their shit together and notify me next time they plan to come in remotely to play with my connection. Have a nice day. CW, I'm calling your CO. Me, okay. Here's Carl redacted and his phone number. Feel free to call him. Please explain to him why your guys FK'd this upgrade up. Better yet, how about if I call the 2-star secretary and have the general give you a jingle so you can explain to him as well? CW. Silence. Result: 2 weeks later, a contractor from the NOC show up to clean up the power cables behind their rack, to include Velcro and zip tying them in a nice neat fashion. After this episode, I started popping in on the weekends for connectivity tests to make sure they never did this again. Disclaimer: I've had some military folks in shock of how I've talked to higher ranking in my past posts. Sorry to say I'm brutally honest. I don't give two TS if you're private or a 2-star general. If you're wrong, you're wrong. Because of this honesty, every officer I've worked for in the automation world has backed me up 100%. Thank you. Next. Being a contractor for a long time, I got to spend time in a lot of different companies in various sectors. Started at a newspaper for a 3-monther doing some third line and network support. No real problems and enjoying it. Until a couple of weeks in when the team lead asks me if I could do a quick one-off fix. Sure, what's the problem? One of the few senior folks who have their own offices and a personal assistant needed someone to double click on a couple of desktop icons to launch the apps he used. Win98. What? He never figured out how to double click on a desktop icon, so got his personal assistant to do this for him first thing in the morning, but she was sick or on holiday, so he was lost. Why not ask a colleague rather than annoy the help desk team lead? I have no idea other than sense of entitlement maybe. Who cares? Maybe the most I've ever been paid to double click a couple of icons. Thank you. Next. I work at a small electronics repair shop. It should also be noted that I wrote the bulk of this during work and was written hastily on mobile in between repairs, so it may not be as detailed as some stories on here. We had a customer come in with a broken home button and screen that we got delayed on because the metal plate for his button was busted. We tried to rush the repair because he had a pregnant wife in the hospital, but the best we could do was use a non-original button plate to fix the button not clicking properly. To clarify, we used a button plate from a different model of phone. We didn't have another original plate in stock, which prevented the screen from laying properly. I did the bulk of the work for the device and my co-worker took over to attempt to remedy the home button not clicking properly when the fixes I tried didn't work. So we told him we couldn't warranty it if he doesn't buy our case, because otherwise it was likely the screen would crack, or we could forego putting the new button on and give him touch assist on his phone, which gives a virtual button and the screen would sit properly. The first option was more expensive. The guy gets angry at us when we tell him we couldn't warranty it if he wanted the physical button to work, and threatens our cashier on duty. My cashier bluffed and said, well, that's okay cause I have a button right here that calls the police in like 3 seconds. It should also be noted my co-workers and my managers don't take poo from anyone. The guy with the pregnant wife who has now threatened us, but has backed down from the police comment, eventually just out of the blue tells his buddy that a girl from Atlanta is trying to passionately hug him and he's gonna tap that later, after which his wife calls him from the hospital with this guy's unborn child and our cashier blurts out, hey you, know your husband is cheating on you with someone from Atlanta, right? The wife starts screaming over the phone and the dude hangs up and goes pale. He gives our cashier a dirty look and pays and leaves. I'm actually kind of surprised he didn't escalate anything at that point. Respect the people doing work for you, especially when they are bending over backwards to rush a repair for you. And more importantly, respect your wife. Thank you. Next. This happened about 15-20 minutes ago at the time of me writing this. I'm a remote support agent who speaks with clients on the phone and VNCs into their computers. A client put a ticket in because every other time she tries to save a document, Excel crashes. She said this document is extremely important and if something bad happens to it then I'm dead. Naturally I decide to make a copy of it just in case, and that starts making her panic. Now I don't want this in more than one place because it will confuse me and I'll mess something up. I try explaining to her that I'm making a copy just to be safe in case we experience another more serious crash that results in data loss. She kind of calms down, but she's naturally panicky. After a lot of testing I'm unable to replicate the error. I begin looking into something else she brought up and my remote session becomes disconnected. It happens a lot because our app that we use is kind of trash. Several more minutes pass of me trying to reconnect to her screen. I'm not having any luck and she starts escalating in her panic again because I had previously minimized her windows. She thought I had closed them. Then she asks something like, now where's that other version you opened? I say I didn't open it. I just copied the file and put the file in location. Then she starts freaking out some more, sounding like she got up and walked away from the phone. She just keeps talking out loud about how she can't afford for this to happen. She can't deal with this shit, etc. I hear a loud crashing noise, followed by great, now I have nowhere to sit. I'm assuming she broke her chair somehow. Then she yells at full volume, one can't ever get anything done. And that's when I decided to do what I've always dreamt of. I hung up on her. I felt bad about it, but I'd hit my breaking point and she clearly hit hers. That is all. Thank you. Next. Bit of backstory. Client was a non-profit that had a lot of older users. None were stupid, but computers were magic machines to most of them. This occurs about 10 years ago when we first started to use Office 365 and Exchange Online and had just migrated this client to Office 365. This story takes place a few months after we migrated them. End of backstory. Department head, hey, I keep having my emails come in a day later. Like if it comes in Monday, I won't see it until Tuesday. Me, weird, alright, let me go take a look. I was on site at the time, so go back to his desk to take a look. I'm kind of stressing out as the migration wasn't the smoothest one and hiccups were still getting sorted still. Starts looking at Outlook inbox. Today group is minimized in Outlook. Easy fix. Luckily Depth was understanding that he probably misclicked something at some time. Thank you. Next. Greetings, and welcome back to another tale of tech failure support. This will be a much shorter than usual, but it's the kind of tale that is more common than you think. So sit back, relax, have a glass of suzu, Google it, and please do the needful. Let's set the stage. Me, $me, the protagonist of the story, runs on coffee and lowbrow brand beer. He also has a cape that flutters in the breeze of a Hero Wind branded fan. Offshore support L1 team, $OS, doing the needful 24/7. End user, $user, needs the needful. To set the background, $me works as an L2 tech, which is to say the end of the line. My team gets tickets for $org that were not able to be resolved by the help desk. If we aren't able to resolve the issue, then we will generally engage the engineers at the relevant vendor. That, or we tell the $user they are out of luck. We handle everything from diagnostics to AD administrative tasks. The way our system works is that tickets get assigned to our queue, and we have dispatchers who assign tickets to individual technicians on our team. It's a round-the-clock operation, but most of our team is in the US and we mostly work daytime hours. I had a ticket assigned to me at 2 AM Thursday morning. The ticket came in for a user in the same country as $OS. Now, I should stop here and note that we require specific ticket documentation from the $OS support team. They need a clear description of the issue, with troubleshooting steps, and a relevant KB so we know what's happening prior to reaching out to the $user. They also should mark the incident with the correct priority so the issue can be prioritized based on a few factors. If it's a single user issue and it's not totally preventing them from doing their work, it's low priority. If there is a major issue where, for example, an entire site cannot connect to the network, it is a critical priority, and there is usually a hot ticket for affected users. I got a ticket that had no information on it beyond icons too big and a description that said the user state the icon on his desktop is too big. Kindly do the needful. This came in as a critical issue and a hot ticket. It was neither hot or critical. By the time I arrived in the office at 9 AM, my inbox and IM was flooded with random people. Most of the messages said kindly provide update on ticket XXXXXXXX or kindly check into this issue on priority. It doesn't end there, folks. I also had a ton of emails that CC'd a bunch of random distribution groups and random people, including the distribution list of my own team. So, I pull up the ticket and call the affected user. No answer, so I reply to the massive email chain that I called the user and left a voicemail. This was apparently a bad idea, as it led to another massive flood of emails from random people who didn't read the email I sent and with more requests to kindly provide update and take issue on priority. Here's the kicker. The user listed on the ticket wasn't the actual user. It was some random person who wasn't listed anywhere on the ticket. After some back and forth, I got the computer name and NT of the affected user. I got a hold of them and remote accessed the machine. Before I could do anything, one of the members of $OS decided to create a virtual meeting and to invite everyone on my team. They insisted I join, so I did. They wanted to discuss with the concerned team the issue. The resolution was somehow set to 640x480. $OS tried to fix the issue by switching to small icons. I set the resolution to the correct one and set the icons back to medium. The whole fix took me 5 minutes, but I wound up spending an hour on the virtual meeting because the user wanted to verify everything looked okay. Needless to say, it was an issue that should have been resolved by $OS, but because one tech didn't know how to change the resolution, I lost an hour and some change of productivity. TL. Dr. Helpdesk didn't understand the issue, blew it way out of proportion in terms of priority, which led to a flood of emails before I started my shift. The fix was something super simple that should have been resolved instead of escalated. I did the needful: edit, grammar, clarification, removed redundancies, added stories for the grandchildren,